The judge's words hit me like a punch. I see no reason to change custody. My heart shattered right there in that cold courtroom, while my daughter Emma sat silently beside me, her small hands clenched in her lap, the only witness to what I knew was happening behind closed doors. My name's Maya Johnson. I'm 32, a night shift nurse in Atlanta, struggling to hold it all together as a single mom. Across the room sat Ethan, my ex, 38 years old, polished, working in finance, with his new wife Lindsay, a 27-year-old social media influencer who smiled like she already owned the whole damn courtroom. Despite all the notes I'd taken, photos I'd snapped, and every whispered word from Emma about how she felt after visits with them, the judge wasn't convinced. He didn't see the fear in my daughter's eyes or the bruises I couldn't prove. I'd been working double shifts, barely scraping by on $48,000 a year, renting a cramped two-bedroom apartment for $12. No one saw the bruises. No one heard the screams, except my daughter. Every time Emma came home from Ethan and Lindsay's place, she was different. She used to be full of life, drawing colorful pictures, telling stories with wide eyes, and that endless giggle only an 8-year-old can have. But after a weekend with them, she came back quiet, withdrawn, like a shadow of herself. I remember one afternoon, she limped in, her small foot barely touching the floor. When I asked her what happened, she just shrugged and said she tripped. But her eyes didn't meet mine. There was something she wasn't saying. Ethan and Lindsay's apartment looked like it was pulled straight from a magazine. Sleek white walls, glass surfaces reflecting every ray of light, and minimalist furniture that screamed expensive taste. But behind that picture-perfect Instagram facade, there was a coldness I couldn't put my finger on. Lindsay's carefully curated posts showed smiling selfies with Emma, captions like, "Our perfect little blended family." But the reality was darker. Lindsay didn't just control what Emma wore or ate. She controlled every word, every emotion. One time, I overheard Emma whisper in a trembling voice over the phone, "Mom, she yells at me if I cry." That was Lindsay, the woman who smiled for the cameras but turned into a storm behind closed doors. Lindsay's insults were sharp, slicing deep with words like, "Stop being so sensitive," or, "If you don't behave, you'll have something to cry about." It was the kind of cruelty no one sees on a feed or story. Ethan wasn't physically violent, but his rage echoed through those walls in the form of thunderous yelling. I could hear snippets during Emma's calls, his voice booming, angry for the smallest things, if Emma spilled juice or forgot homework. Emma started to flinch at loud noises, jumping at shadows. Her nights became restless, haunted by nightmares she was too scared to explain. At home, I tried to piece together the cracks in her spirit. The drawings she made, once bright and hopeful, turned dark and chaotic. One showed a little girl behind bars, tears streaming down her face. Another was just scribbles, heavy and aggressive. The court wanted evidence, something solid. But how do you prove silence and fear? I hired a lawyer right away, someone who promised to fight for me and Emma. Every week I met with him, clutching my folders stuffed with notes, photos, sleep logs, and voice recordings of Emma whispering things she was too scared to say out loud. I remember sitting in that cold, sterile office, my hands trembling as I laid out everything I'd gathered, every bruise, every scared glance, every nightmare Emma had shared. It felt like I was holding pieces of my daughter's broken spirit in my hands. But the legal system wasn't interested in pieces. They wanted proof you could see, hold, touch, physical evidence, clear and undeniable, a video, a witness, something the judge could point to and say, "This is fact." Not a scared little girl's trembling voice, not a mother's desperate notes scrawled in the dark hours. Court days were a nightmare. I sat in those halls, heart pounding, watching Ethan's lawyer dismantle everything I tried to present with surgical precision. They called my accounts circumstantial, my anxiety instability. The judge's expression rarely changed, cold, detached, as if my pain was just another case number. Each hearing drained me more. The bills piled up, $200 an hour for the lawyer, nearly $15,000 gone before we saw a breakthrough. I worked double shifts to keep us afloat, barely sleeping. haunted by the thought that I might lose Emma to a man who hid his rage behind a polished smile. I spent countless nights awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying the courtroom scenes in my mind, wondering if I'd said enough, done enough. I agonized over every missed call, every moment Emma needed me, but was trapped in silence. The fear that the system designed to protect my daughter might fail us was suffocating. But I refused to give up. Every scrap of evidence was another voice in the fight, a beacon in the darkness. Yet, the deeper I dug, the clearer it became. The law struggles with abuse that leaves no visible scars. Emotional wounds don't bleed, fear doesn't shout. And courts? They demand proof that speaks louder than tears. I knew we needed. She was just 8 years old, but she did what no adult could. She captured the truth. I didn't know Emma had the courage, the quiet strength to do what she did that day. The phone, the pink tablet I bought for her birthday, was hidden under the couch cushion. She never told me she'd taken it with her. I found out only when she stood in that courtroom, small but steady, and said, "Mom, can I show the judge the video I saved?" The room went completely silent. Ethan's confident smirk faltered, and Lindsay's eyes darted around like she was searching for an escape. I felt my heart pounding so loud I was sure the judge could hear it. Emma handed the tablet to the bailiff, her hands barely shaking, and watched as the screen lit up on the judge's bench. The video started, raw, unfiltered, unbearable to watch. Ethan's voice thundered through the speakers, full of rage, his words cutting sharper than any knife. Lindsay's voice wasn't far behind, cold and threatening, the kind of voice that made you want to disappear. And then there was Emma's quiet sobbing, the heartbreaking sound of a little girl trapped in a nightmare no child should ever face. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. That footage was the proof I'd been desperate for. The judge leaned forward, eyes fixed on the screen, his usual calm replaced by something heavier, something like disbelief. Questions followed. Where and when was this recorded? The room held its breath. Daddy's house last month, Emma answered clearly, her voice strong despite the fear I knew she carried. The judge nodded and asked the bailiff to increase the volume. The truth was undeniable. Ethan stood, trying to interrupt, claiming the video was manipulated, that Emma was too young to understand. But the judge raised his hand to silence him. Lindsay went pale. Her arms crossed so tightly it looked like she was trying to hold herself together. Ethan's jaw clenched. The smug confidence he wore like armor was cracking. That video shattered the illusion they'd built. It was raw. It was real. And it was the moment everything changed. The judge didn't just see the evidence. He felt the weight of it. He declared the video credible evidence. The nightmare wasn't over. But for the first time, hope felt real. After the courtroom drama faded, the real work began. Emma and I started therapy at a local center, specializing in children who face trauma. Those first sessions were heartbreaking. Watching her struggle to put feelings into words, seeing her flinch at loud noises, and realizing just how much fear she'd carried alone. But little by little, with the help of gentle therapists, Emma began to find her voice again. They used art therapy, letting her paint the feelings she couldn't speak, and slowly, those dark images started to fade into colorful scenes of hope and strength. I won't lie, those days were tough. I was exhausted from juggling a new day shift at the hospital and the endless appointments. But the community around us rallied in ways I never expected. My mom moved in to help watch Emma after school. Friends brought meals on my busiest nights, and local organizations connected us with counselors and legal advocates who guided us through every step of the investigation into Ethan and Lindsay. Ethan's visitation rights were slashed to supervised visits only, and Lindsay faced charges for emotional abuse. A legal first for someone in our community. Knowing they couldn't just walk away made the fear inside me ease just a little. I found a small house in a quieter neighborhood, somewhere Emma could feel safe. It wasn't fancy, but it was ours. A fresh start. The changes in Emma were subtle at first. A deeper sleep, a smile that lasted a little longer, the sound of her laughter filling our home again. She started painting again, not just sad faces, but bright flowers and playful animals. At school, she made a friend named Lily, someone who sat with her at lunch and left little notes on her desk that said things like, "You're brave," and "We're best friends forever." One evening, after a day full of therapy and play, Emma and I planted a small tree in our backyard. She called it the Restart Tree. Every night, she waters it carefully, watching the buds grow stronger each week. That tree is more than just a plant. It's a symbol of everything we're fighting for: new beginnings, resilience, and the promise of a future where fear doesn't rule. There are still hard days, nights when the past creeps in, when I catch Emma looking out the window, lost in thought. But we're healing. Together. And just when I thought we could finally breathe, sometimes it takes just one voice to shatter the silence and change everything. There's a weight I carry every single day, the weight of what we went through, and the weight of what still lingers. My story with Emma isn't just about fighting for custody or proving abuse. It's about the raw, aching truth that sometimes, even when you speak, the world doesn't listen right away. It's about the courage it takes to keep speaking, especially when the silence around you feels deafening. The hardest lesson I learned? That emotional abuse leaves scars you can't always see. Bruises fade, but words control fear. They bury themselves deep inside, shaping how a child sees the world. Sometimes these wounds go unnoticed by those who should protect us most, and that's a pain that's hard to explain. If you ever wonder if what you're feeling matters, if your story is real enough, know this: it is. Your pain is valid. Your voice deserves to be heard. For anyone watching who feels trapped in a similar darkness, who's wrestling with fear, isolation, or doubt, please hear me when I say this. You are not alone. There are people ready to help, to listen without judgment. Reach out, talk to a trusted friend, call a hotline, find a local support center. It won't always be easy, and the path will be rocky, but every step forward is a victory. Your safety and your truth matter. I've spoken to lawyers and therapists who remind me that the law can be slow, the system imperfect, but it also can be changed by the stories we share, by the strength we find to speak up. Protecting children from emotional harm isn't just about evidence. It's about recognizing pain even when it's hidden. So if you're here, if this story touched something inside you, consider sharing your own. You might be the lifeline someone else is waiting for. Emma's bravery taught me that sometimes the smallest voices carry the greatest power. She didn't just survive. She showed me how to fight with grace and relentless hope. Watching her laugh again, seeing her dream again, that's why I keep going. But I'm still learning to forgive, not just others, but myself. For the moments I doubted, for the times I felt helpless. Healing isn't a straight line, and some wounds take time to close. If this story found you, if you've ever felt invisible or unheard, please take a moment to like this video. Maybe